That morning, as I was going through the first set of case files, a single sentence made me pause. A man was caught going through a bag left outside a restaurant. At first glance, it looked like a routine case. But after years on the bench, I've learned that sometimes the most ordinary lines conceal the most extraordinary stories. Name on the file: Thomas Reid, 35 years old. Profession: carpenter. Marital status: widowed. Criminal record: clean. But a note at the bottom caught my eye. Post-fire trauma. The only thing left was the bag. Suddenly I held the file with greater care. In the courtroom, the first thing I noticed was the silence. When Thomas Reid entered, his shoulders were slouched. His jacket was worn, his eyes dimmed, and his hands clutched his knees. Not like someone afraid, but like a man still trying to make sense of things. The silence was broken by the prosecutor. "Your Honor, Thomas Reid was caught handling a bag left near a downtown restaurant. According to witnesses, he seemed nervous, rummaging through the bag. They believed it wasn't his, and called the police. It seemed simple. A man going through a bag. But sometimes the simplest acts are tied to the deepest reasons." The prosecutor continued. When the officers arrived, the defendant was still there. He didn't flee. He didn't resist. But he refused to explain anything. I asked the man myself, "Mr. Reid, why were you going through that bag?" He looked up at me for the first time and simply said, "It was mine." 2 words. Yet they silenced the entire room. His lawyer stepped in. "Your Honor, Mr. Reid has been homeless for nearly 5 years. Last night, while sleeping at a city shelter, someone stole the only item he had left from his former life. A bag containing memories of his daughter. It held no monetary value, only sentimental." I asked, "Then what happened?" He spent the whole day searching for it. In the evening, passing by a restaurant, he noticed the bag placed near an outdoor table. He recognized it immediately and began checking inside. But a bystander mistook his actions as suspicious and called the police. I requested the bag be brought to the courtroom. A bailiff placed it on the bench, worn, charred at the edges, the zipper broken. A small, child-themed button still hung on it. Inside, a wooden toy, a faded drawing, a burned family photo, and a partially melted ID card. "Are these yours?" I asked Thomas. He nodded. "They were my daughter's," he said. His voice didn't crack, but my heart did. I'm a judge. But sometimes I need to be more than a decision-maker. I must be a listener. And I realized this case wasn't about theft. It was about a father searching for the last connection he had left in this world. I postponed the hearing, because what was in question wasn't property. It was memory. Even if the lights in the courtroom had gone out, I'd still remember the look in his eyes, like a fire burned inside him, not consuming, but never extinguished. Later that evening, I reopened his file. Between the pages, a fire report, an old newspaper clipping, and a few yellowed photographs. Date: 5 years ago. Location: Thomas Reid's 2-story wooden home and carpentry workshop. A line in the report struck me. The fire started from a power tool socket in the workshop. 2 people were in the house. A young girl was trapped upstairs. I imagined the night. Thomas, a carpenter whose hands still smelled of sawdust. His wife had died during a military operation. He was raising his daughter alone. Maybe dinner was over. Maybe his daughter had gone to bed. Maybe Thomas was downstairs finishing a custom order. Maybe he was just 5 minutes late. But sometimes 5 minutes is everything. The fire began at 11:41 p.m. The flames spread quickly through the wooden structure. Thomas tried to reach the 2nd floor. The door was engulfed in flames. He heard his daughter screaming from inside. But that door never opened. Thomas survived. His daughter didn't. The next morning, in front of what remained of the house, he sat with only a bag. He had thrown in whatever he could salvage. A sketchbook, a puppet, a hairpin, and a scorched photograph pulled from a broken frame. That was the bag, I whispered to myself. After the fire, everything fell apart. No insurance payout, debt piled up, orders stopped coming. The house was gone, the workshop was gone. His entire life collapsed. For 5 years, Thomas Reid lived with that bag. It wasn't luggage. It was a portable gravestone, a memory container, a silence he carried on his back. And now it was gone. And people asked, "Why were you going through it?" Knowing all this, I couldn't treat this case like just another file. There was more here than a verdict. There was a life folded between ashes and silence. That morning, Thomas woke up on a cold metal bunk bed in a downtown shelter. The stale air, the coughing from the next bed, the hum of broken heaters, none of it mattered. What did matter was the one thing he always reached for first: his daughter's bag. The only thing that survived the fire, the last piece of his past. But this time, the bag was gone. He froze, checked under the bed, next to the radiator. Nothing. He asked around. No one had seen anything, but no one ever did. People in shelters didn't make eye contact, let alone share information. Thomas walked out into the street, searching. Hours passed. He checked trash cans, alleyways, bus stops, his face soaked in sweat and despair. That afternoon, as he passed a small diner, something caught his eye. A bag lying near a table leg outside. He slowed down, stopped, turned back. There it was. Worn handle, scorched corner, torn seams. It was his. He crouched slowly. Hands trembling, he pulled the zipper open. The contents were still there, but everything had been disturbed. The puppet's strings were tangled, the notebook pages creased, the hair clip had fallen to the bottom. Someone had gone through it, looking for something valuable, found nothing, left everything behind, but not untouched. Thomas's throat tightened. It felt like someone had dug into a grave. Inside the diner, a customer watched him, pulled out a phone. "There's a guy outside rummaging through someone's bag. I think it's a thief." By the time the police arrived, Thomas was still crouching, still staring into the bag. Not running, not hiding. "Sir, is this your bag?" Without looking up, he said, "Yes, it's mine. Everything in it. It's mine." The officer peeked inside. A puppet, a worn notebook, a photo, a hair clip. To anyone else, junk. But to Thomas, it was memory. It was grief. It was love. Still, they followed procedure. They cuffed him, placed him in the cruiser. He didn't resist, didn't argue. He just clutched the bag tightly in his arms. The footage would later be tagged. Suspicious activity. Possible theft. But when I watched it, I didn't see a thief. I saw a man clinging to the last remains of his life. It was the first time I saw Thomas Reid in person. 35, the file said. But the man looked older, worn down, hollowed by something far heavier than time. What I saw on the police footage didn't match what stood before me in court. Not a thief, not a threat, just broken. The prosecutor was sharp and clinical. Attempted theft in a public location. The accused has no known address, no employment, and no income. He poses a flight risk. Cold words, paper facts, but not the full story. I looked at him and asked, "Mr. Reid, why did you take the bag?" He raised his head slowly. No defiance, no anger, just a truth stripped of pride. "Because that bag belonged to my daughter, and I don't have anything else." The courtroom fell silent. The prosecutor interjected. "The bag was found near another patron. Ownership is unclear." Thomas nodded slowly. "I didn't hurt anyone. I didn't steal anything. I just found what I'd already lost." The bag was sitting next to me in an evidence pouch. I glanced inside. A puppet, a notebook, a hair clip, a worn photograph. Worthless in dollars, but priceless in meaning. All I could think was, some people carry their past in a suitcase, others carry their whole life in a single bag. And that bag, today, was being used to prosecute the man it belonged to. The hearing dragged on that day. It wasn't an easy judgment, because it was never just about a bag. This was about a man, his loss, and the only piece of his life that still remained. A father, a husband, a carpenter. Now, just a man standing alone, still holding on. There were no witnesses. A public defender was appointed. Thomas answered most questions with silence. He didn't need to speak. The bag had spoken for him. I opened it one last time, for everyone to see. No one laughed. No one interrupted. A child's hand puppet, a scribbled notebook, and a note. "Daddy, I love you. I'll wait for you to come back." A quiet gasp spread through the courtroom. I was a judge. I had to remain neutral. But that day, neutrality felt hollow. When given the chance for final words, Thomas looked up and said, with peace in his voice, "I was never a criminal, but life punished me anyway. This bag, it was the only reward I ever got." Just then, a young woman stood from the back. She had been the first to see the bag, but after reading the note, she left it where it was. She wasn't the one who called the police. She was just a witness to the past. Thomas was released. He took the bag and walked out of the courtroom without looking back. Each step felt like he was walking through years of pain, and I sat there, wondering to myself, who are we really judging? If this story touched you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We don't just tell stories, we tell human truths. Now it's your turn. If you had found that bag, what would you have done?